Wow.
Howdy, folks. Welcome to another installment of the Massive Passive Dealmakers Show, brought to you by the Alamo Rias of Houston and San Antonio. I am here with Richard, Tom, and Cal, who are going to be running today's show. Have at it, guys.
Yo.
Am I on?
Thanks
Okay.
for having us.
Well, I'm hosting this
What a
show.
pleasure.
I found out at the last minute, and so Ray told me that I've got a couple of pros that I'm working with, and so I'm kind of coming in, and hopefully I don't test your patience too much. My name is Richard Fields. I work with, I own U.S. Direct Home Buyers. We wholesale nationally. That sounds big, but right now it's a very modest operation. I'd love to talk to anyone about that at any time. This is the Massive Passive Show here on AM 1070 and YouTube Live. Gentlemen, thank you for coming here. We're here every Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. to deliver valuable content to real estate investors. We are excited about our two RIA groups in Texas, Alamo RIA in San Antonio, and the soon-to-be renamed RIA in Houston. We are chapters of the National RIA. There are tangible benefits of being members of the National RIA, and you don't get those benefits just anywhere else. The main benefit probably is the Home Depot discount and with the Desk Pro privileges. Houston has been sharing online assets with San Antonio, and so online there's a little bit of confusion there. As the name and the website, I told you I was an amateur at this. So, so the name and the website and the Facebook presence all are shared there with that, and that's causing a little bit of confusion, at least with me looking at this. And so we are getting our own name. Our local meeting is about to hear the same news. Hopefully on March 12th at our Saturday meeting, we will announce our new name. Until, and I just shared this with the guys, and they kind of gave me this confused look, but the new name is Houston Nameless RIA 2022. And that's about as
the mystery.
About as nondescript as you can make it.
I love it.
And we have a Facebook. You can go and search for Houston Nameless RIA 2022. And so I'm going to go out there after we make this announcement and just say, tag the heck out of that. Like us on Facebook. We need as much help as we can get, so we can make as big a splash as we can. The previous national RIA chapter in Houston got up to a membership of over 1,000 people. And we are looking to have a similar benefit. And so that means more programming, more people, more energy in the room, more sponsors, more connections, more social media interactions. Back when they had 1,000 members at the old Rich Club, they didn't have social media, and so they had to work really hard for that. And so we need as much help as we can get from everyone on that. And so I really appreciate that. March 12th, we'll have our own name if all goes according to plan. And we will change the name of our website. We will change the name of our Facebook page. Until then, you can go to just namelessria.com, and that's going to be on the website, and the Facebook page is probably the better place to go, and we'll make that transition. So, enough of that. I get long-winded, so gentlemen, y'all can cut me off, but I'm going to kind of turn this into me asking the questions. And so today we have Mr. Tom.
Yes, sir. Happy to be here. Thank you.
And I'll have you introduce yourself in a minute and maybe explain the Mr. Tom. And that's a good
We'll just leave it at that.
This is live radio, so I've never been on live radio before. And then we have Mr. Cal.
Uh-oh.
And
happy to be here. Kind of interesting that I'm in this group of esteemed people, but I'm here anyway. and it's super enjoyable. I love anything to do with real estate and how to make your family create new wealth for themselves. I mean, it's exciting stuff.
Okay, why don't you just go ahead and continue with who you are, who you work with, or your company, and what you do.
Well, my name is Cal Barron, and I work for Longhorn Investments. And Longhorn Investments is a great company that's going to provide you with capital if you're going to flip a house, and then really my mainstream focus, just personally, we love to hold rental homes. Between my son and myself, my older son and myself, we have probably over 100 doors. And this is a great way for a family. Look, if you're the CEO of Exxon, just get off this radio show right now. You don't need us. Just hang up and please go back to the pool and the spa, okay? But if you're just a regular family guy, and you might have some 401k, et cetera, et cetera. But if you want to learn how to expand your financial base, you need to get involved in this because it is really not that difficult to engage. There's some great ways to invest. We've always used one of the simplest methods available, which is buy a broken house, leverage money to buy it, fix it up, rent it out, stabilize the finance, hold it forever. And that's been kind of our staples, on a personal basis. So, I just encourage everybody. I get excited about it. I know I'm going way off, I'm going way off the paper here, but it's exciting stuff, and I think you owe it to yourself to kind of embrace this. Hey, you might be doing good in the stock market. Maybe you're the first guy to buy a Bitcoin. Great, but you can diversify. You can learn how to create generational wealth. This is a great club. Come see us.
Good deal. Thank you, Cal. Well, Mr. Tom, you want to tell us your story?
Yeah. My story is I got into real estate. Basically, I'm not proud of this story, but it's the truth. I have been fired from every job I've ever had, either fired or laid off.
You too?
I'm not sure what the difference is between being fired and laid off, but the net result is the same. And I was at the point in my career, or lack thereof, I was in the oil and gas business in the early 80s. And those of us old enough to understand at that time, it was pretty tough. So I'm going to the Rich Club. I'm going to meetings. My parents took me. And the biggest thing I took out of that Rich Club was, if you're going to do anything, you got to do it for yourself. People aren't going to hand you wealth. Why would they? I heard a speaker speak, and at the end of his talk, I think it was either Barney Zick or Zig Ziglar. I forget, it was a national name. And at the end of his talk, he kept referring to this deal. And this deal netted him $20-something thousand plus. Well, at that time, for a 23-year-old, that was more money than I made in a year. That caught my attention. So I started to go in classes, got myself around good quality mentors that were buying property. And how I found them was I started looking at signs, that were everywhere, bandit signs. I buy houses. I kept seeing the same number over and over again in the area of town where I lived. So I called the guy, and I said, I'm interested in this. I've thus far just been a librarian. So tell me what it is that you do. If you'll show me, tell me, etc., I'll buy you lunch, I'll take you here, spend time with you. Show me what you do. And he was kind enough to do that, and I'll be forever in his debt. So over a period of months, I think I made him the deal. Look, if you'll show me how to do the first deal, I'll give it to you. It was that valuable to me. I had spent a lot of times in seminars, classes, et cetera, at the Rich Club at the time, but hadn't written the first offer. I called myself a real estate librarian because I had background, but hadn't done anything. So I ended up getting an appointment with this lady, a retired real estate agent, on her vacant house. We met at her place, signed her up on a contract. But remember, this was a long time ago. Purchase price on a 2-bedroom house was $20,000. And I came to that number by saying, well, houses in this area are going for about $10,000 a room. It's a 2-bedroom. How's 20 sound? She took it.
Wow.
And financed it. Financed it. It was a vacant house that had a lot of problems.
Your first deal was an seller financing?
Seller financing for part of her equity, and I took over her loan. The total payment was $327 a month.
So tell me about the seller financing. Did you happen into that because you were looking for sources of money to do it, and you just kind of figured out that that's one thing you could do with her?
It happened by necessity, Richard.
Yeah, that's really my question, yeah.
I didn't have the money to pay her. I think the amount of the debt at that time was maybe $12,000. I didn't have $8,000 to pay her. Remember, I'm 23 years old, no job, no credit, actually bad credit because I was behind on my house payments. I was negative equity in my own life trying to develop income. So again, this is a long time ago. I'm trying to remember the fact situation.
Mm-hmm.
Approximately 12 owed on it. We worked out terms on the 8, and I think that's when I discovered deferred payments. I said, look, I can't pay you anything because the house isn't generating any income. It just made perfect sense to me. In 3 months, I'll start making house payments to you and house payments to the lender. You need to cover it till then. And that gave me time to get in there and fix it, work it up. I sold the house, owner financed, for $30,000 with, I think, 10% down and at an interest rate much higher than I was being charged. So I was making $160, $170 a month, plus got a down payment of $3,000. That's more money than I'd seen in forever. That's how I got started.
Wow.
So let's get back a little bit. So necessity is the mother of invention, and you found yourself coming up with some way to buy this house seller finance. Then you sold it owner finance, and of course, in your case, you just go to the title or find an attorney, and
That's exactly what we did. We found an attorney that at that time would do contract for deeds, something we don't do in the state of Texas anymore. They're not illegal. They've just made them so legally hard to do, onerous, that we don't do them. And for a lot of reasons, I tend to agree that it's probably best for the consumer and the lender. But at any rate, develop that spread. And the spread was a third. And if you just project that to today's numbers, if you could buy a house for $100 and sell it for $150 or $160, that's about what we're doing now, only 5 times as much.
Right.
Okay, I know you slept since then, but let's go a little bit further with the owner finance. So
Yes, sir.
you got in the seller financing because it was necessary, and then do you remember the details enough on the when you turned around and sold it owner financing?
Sold it owner financing, 10% down, 12% interest, 20 years.
And 12% interest back then wasn't as outrageous as we would think today.
That was market then. That was every day.
Yeah.
Anybody that borrowed from any institution was getting 12%.
Yeah, we bought our first house in 1983, and it was 12.25%.
My first house.
Those 80s rates were tough. Huh?
My first house was
Post Jimmy Carter. Yeah.
was 13.75, and that was a blended rate. It had a 8% first and like a 19% second. So they blended it to 13.75, and that's the loan I got.
Wow.
So yeah, it was the rates were not discounted like they are today. People are screaming because retail on a non-owner occupant may be 5.5. That's almost free money in my world. It's just super cheap.
Well, you obviously had a penchant for finance, because just listening to that deal, I mean, that's awesome that you at that age, you could dig in on the numbers like that. Me, I'm a little bit, well, let's just say I'm more like a brick. So
now, what do you mean more like a brick?
I'm not that dimensional of a thinker, I mean, anyway. They would say I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but the funny thing, I backed into this whole world. But I did relate to your firing stories, because I don't know how many jobs I've gotten, shown the door on, and that was kind of drove me, because I had no opportunity to even ever look at retirement. I mean, I had, I was facing my 40s, 50 grand and a smile, and I had worked really hard, made a lot of money through those years. And I realized that I wasn't going to get there. So my first deal, man, I literally figured out, okay, look, I'm not a dimensional thinker, Bottom line is I found a house in the neighborhood and I realized that, if that house is fixed up, it's going to be worth about 130 grand.
Now, what year was that, since we're going back in
golly,
time?
that was probably about 9 years ago. I don't know.
Okay. So your first house 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We always had a rental, so to speak, but we
Right.
never looked at it like a business, like
Right.
the type of business that we built, since then. I mean, we didn't look at it. But
Mr. Tom, in his first deal, was in his mid-20s.
yeah, no, I was
You're
40,
you're 49 now?
Yeah, I'm much older now. But the cool thing is that, I didn't really worry about a lot of other things. I just got focused on the fact that, look, that house was worth 130. I met with the lady and I said, look, if you fix this up and you do this and you spend, 40 grand on this house, you can easily sell it for 130, backed in the math like that. Obviously retail prices to rehab it. And she said, well, I'm not putting 40 grand in this thing. Well, great. I'd like to make you an offer. So I made her an offer of, I don't know, I think it was 75 grand or something like that. Closing quick, blah, blah, blah. And, she said, okay, we'll consider it. Called me back 3 days later, say, hey, we were thinking 80. I said, done. Ran down there, signed a contract, pulled some kind of form off the internet, signed a contract, whistling, stepping off the stoop, walking out of that house, and then suddenly realizing I don't have $80,000.
I was just about to ask you, where'd the 80 come from?
That's
the problem I had.
Yeah, I had
resources.
no vision whatsoever. Again, brick-minded. And my wife was like, hey, how are you going to make that work?
So
anyway,
necessity is the mother of invention.
yes,
What did you do, Cal?
I backed in and I started to, do my research, find out about hard money, how that works, who would fund this deal for me. And I was fortunate enough to find a little company that helped me out, fund this thing. And I got to tell you, I mean, we painted a few walls. We did some physical labor in that particular deal. It's early, but I still own that house today. That house comps out at a little bit over $200,000. I get $1,500 a month or $1,600 a month, rent for it. I've kept it. So, if you look at that, I mean, I started out 80 grand. Now it's worth, 200. I mean, sometimes it's good to be stupid.
So let's. We have a theme here with going to our original deal. You have an original deal. You had about 40. You're nearly 50 years old when you did that.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of experience.
40s and I mean,
and so you didn't have the money at that point, although you have some more experience and you have a much better sense of. Having water under the bridge as far as handling finances over the years and having responsibility,
absolutely,
mortgage, all the stuff that Tom, in his point at beginning, didn't have. So my question for you is, you were facing getting financing from from a spot. Did you know that you did not have time to go back and get a regular mortgage on it, and so you were looking for something a little unconventional? And then
absolutely.
How did you dig?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you have a previous point of reference to do that?
No, I didn't. I really just started searching, calling people. I just kind of did an all-out search. I knew that there was no way I was going to get any kind of traditional funding because I didn't have the 20% down. And I had to leverage this. This home was, it was broken, so we used leverage money. And it was great because I think my end of that, I think I spent maybe $4,500, $5,000 to make that transaction work initially, fixed up the house and then converted the loan later. But that's just been the mode of operation. And I didn't do it smoothly or wonderfully that time, but we got better. It's kind of like a simple process that we just kept getting better and better and better at. And now it's just like, rolling out of bed every morning, and so I'm kind of a different, like I said, it's kind of a flatline thinker out there. There's so many, and it's amazing that I'm sitting here with people like yourselves because, there's so many very dimensional thinkers that are doing real estate in such, vast, incredible ways, commercial, different things. But we've just stuck to this one simple phenomenon because my only objective.
It's your hedgehog concept, yeah.
My only objective was to provide my family with a retirement. And I'm proud to say that, our net worths are, well, it's certainly, 7 figures plus now, so that's an astounding accomplishment, I think, for 5, 6, 7 year investment. I mean, your 401k is not going to do that, folks. But I can show you how to leverage your 401k to make that happen. So, that I don't know. That's just my little story. And I'm sorry, I kind of robbed your.
No,
I jumped in you because I love your story because you obviously had you had some financial wherewithal at a very early age.
Well, I had very good mentors. I give them the bulk, the 80% of the credit. At some point, I had to go to work, but without their pushing me, showing me, instructing me, answering the phone calls, having breakfast meetings. What do I do next? You have to have a good mentor, in my opinion, to be in this business. I bought a package of 6 houses early in my career, and I like to say that I bought those houses from the owner who was selling them due to illness. He was sick of tenants. He hadn't trained himself to be a landlord.
Yeah.
And his lack of training and skill created a great opportunity for me. I think I bought 6 houses at an average of $30,000 a piece. A couple of them were over 31, 32, and I thought I was overpaying for those properties. I was right at the top of the market, but they were provided with financing that I could take over. I didn't assume the loans. It's a big difference. I just took them over and renovated them, kicked out the deadbeat tenants at that time, didn't want to pay him, and refurbished them, put them back on the market, made a profit. Each one generated over $100 a month. And to me at the time, remember my house payment was $327. So if I had 6 houses, each making $150 a month, I'm in tall cotton, as they say in Texas. And it really worked out well. But I learned a lot from him, from his situation, talking to him. His landlording skills or lack thereof created opportunity. His adversity created my opportunity.
I love your thinking, though, because, your thinking led to, it just rang a bell for me because you were covering your expenses, with that revenue.
Plus,
and look, if you're out there and, think of it this way. If you wake up every morning and all your bills are paid, how will that make your family feel? Well, let me tell you, it'll make your family feel really good. So that's why, you gotta explore this stuff.
Self-esteem is not a gift; it's earned.
Absolutely.
So I want to focus on something here. Both of you have talked about what you did in your first deal. And Cal was over twice as old as Tom was when he did his first deal. And
slow learner here.
but that's significant. I mean, I was older than that when I did my first deal. Mm-hmm. So Tom mentioned getting help along the way. One thing I didn't really mention, one reason why I'm sitting here at this chair is because we are having our RIA meeting about 20 feet away on the other side of that door over there.
Yep.
And someone on the radio might hear a little bit of noise there. Well, that's what you might be hearing from that radio. We want that. Basically, we want you here. This radio program is over at 10 a.m., and so if you can come down to 1001 West Loop South, that's just north of Post Oak Boulevard, on the northbound side, on the inside loop side of 610. Since I live outside the Beltway, I don't talk about 610 much. But if y'all come down here, the meeting is still going to be going on, and the meeting is free. And we are starting a lot of new things. A lot of training is going to be available. There's a lot of those perks of membership that I didn't even get into. But y'all can even start that today. Tom mentioned getting coaching. And so, Tom, I want to ask you about your involvement in a RIA group back then. You had mentioned the Rich Club, and there were some others around. Can you kind of give us what your
Sure.
experience was?
I guess it was 86, 87, I joined the Rich Club. My parents were charter members of the Rich
Wow.
Club. I don't know if y'all are old enough in this room, but the Rich Club was founded by the remnants of an Al Lowry group. And you've really got to go back in history to know who Al Lowry was. It was one of the leading edge single-family home guys. He taught a class here in Houston, and those members decided the only way we're going to continue our education is to keep having subsequent meetings. They developed and formed the Rich Club. My parents were part of that, and I don't want to say they drugged me to meetings, but they encouraged me to go, and it was that encouragement and talking to people that knew way more than I could imagine, and that inspired me to get onto my career path. That and the fact that I've been fired from every job. I now knew that I had an opportunity if I could just get around the people that were already doing what I wanted to do. And if you want to learn to cut diamonds, you got to go to a diamond cutter, not a bricklayer.
Exactly.
They're both working in stone, but it's not the same job. So you got to get around professionals already doing what you do. And I was so fortunate to get around 3 or 4 mentors. We had a weekly or bi-weekly meeting at the Kips Big Boy. We'd have a breakfast round table, and I would bring all of my laundry list of questions to these guys. And they were very kind to say, well, let's do this, let's do that. Have you tried A, B, or C? And they held my hand to the point that it made a huge difference. I don't want to say it was a difference in my family tree. They planted me an orchard. That's how big of a difference it was. I didn't come from money at all. My parents actually borrowed money from me so they could get them over some financial humps. So whatever I have, I had to make it myself. I had to do the work. I had to, first and foremost, I had to get educated. And that's what these meetings are. Get around people that already know what you're trying to do. And there's a lot of good educators here.
Yeah, I'd say what's interesting is, I made a lot of mistakes along the way because I didn't know that was even available. You were, bright enough to go to these meetings, and I was a late bloomer to them, and so I made some mistakes along the way, but luckily, the mistakes weren't fatal. But and then of course, coming to the RIA and being involved and getting involved, it's just been awesome. But what an awesome story we share in terms of being fired.
So both of y'all on the panel at 11 o'clock? No, you're not, right?
No.
Okay. Also, Cal's one of our sponsors, and so we definitely we're taking on all the sponsorships that we can bring. This is a startup operation in Houston. We're ahead of things in San Antonio, and so we're trying to catch up with San Antonio, being about 4 times as big as San Antonio. We really aim to be about 4 times as big as San Antonio. So with that, but Tom is on the panel, and so if you like what Tom is saying, just come on down today. You'll be able to hear that. That panel starts about 11 a.m. in our meeting. Right now, they're going through a lot of the other educational things that we have, some group exercises, things like that. But let me go back to some of the things that I've heard about. Now, Tom, you said you and your son, so you had a son when you first started this. Tom didn't have any children then.
Okay.
At 23. You didn't have?
No.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
And if you did, you'd have brought him out during the negotiations to distract the seller, right? So,
Absolutely.
You want to talk about that process and kind of?
Yeah, I mean, hey, and my son is a degreed engineer. He's crazy smart, and so he's really, he's taken this thing and compounded. I mean, he's doing owner finance deals. He's doing. He bought an apartment complex that I consequently helped him, turn around and sell it. He bought it for $1.4 million, and he put $100,000 in it. We sold it for $2 million in 2 years. So we've done some other stuff, but he is by far, once again, back to me. I'm I'm the old, tried and true bricklayer, man. I just, I buy them broken, fix them up, figure out the financing, hold them forever, and that's just what we do, and we do it for a lot of reasons. It's not about the numbers. Hey, you can create real estate to be as wealthy as you want to be, and more power to you. But what we found is we wanted the independence and the freedom, of having an income, but also being untethered to other entities or other people. I mean, my wife and I are the CEO. All answers, come from her. You know that. But it creates a great life because, like I say, if you wake up every day and all your bills are paid, that sense of freedom, it creates new opportunities for you in relationships, in your children's relationships, in every area of your life. So that's where
So when you did that first deal, was that a pivot in your life? Did you start to gravitate toward full-time investing, and now you're doing the hard money lending?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, the way I kind of got into the hard money, I mean, I've used a lot of the different hard money companies here in Houston to fund my deals. And, hard money is a beautiful thing. I mean, a lot of people are scared of it. I look at it, it's kind of like a Colt 45. If you don't know what you're doing with a Colt 45, very dangerous. If you know what you're doing with it, you can hit the target every time.
It's a good metaphor.
And hard money, you if you're utilizing it to quickly secure a property at a price that is significantly lower than retail, then by all means, utilize that tool. And, that's what I did. Anyway, I used a lot of hard money lenders, and Longhorn, they reached out to me. I'd used them, and I thought, man, these guys are professional. They have an awesome draw system. I mean, they were just like more professional, than Benny and Joe with a couple $100,000. So I was impressed. I mean, they were lawyers and bankers type people that really had their stuff together. They reached out and called me. They said, hey, we need somebody down here in Houston. I said, well, I'm really not looking for a job. And of course, at the time, I was probably I was over 50. And they said, well, we have great health care. And I said, when do I start? So that's been the relationship. And look, Mike Hoffman owns Longhorn Investments, and I can't say enough about him. He's an exceptional, brilliant finance guy. And, it's been a pleasure to work with him and for him and around him. So that's really how that came about.
So
if I could dovetail on
Sure.
what Cal just said, hard money is something my wife got into. I was doing the rent house thing forever and ever. And we went to a few classes. They talked about doing the owner financing, et cetera. And she had some money to invest from her 401, et cetera, where we could direct the funds ourselves. She started doing some loans, and I saw her interest income skyrocket. And as you know, that's not a labor-intensive job. Cashing checks and filling out deposit slips is the kind of work I'd like for 8 hours a day. Well, she did a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And I thought, why am I working so hard with a rental fleet when I could take on more of this? So I really owe it to her for leading the way, mm-hmm. and spearheading that section of our group. She did it. I got into it more in 2008, 2009 when our economy turned. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have inflation back then in real estate. It might have been 1 or 2% a year. It wasn't anything of any significance. So I sold off a tremendous amount of the rent house portfolio, turned it into paper, and now we missed that boat of inflation and appreciation in rent houses, so we're getting back into rent houses. The bottom line is if you're paying taxes, you need rent houses. When you run out of money, you need more paper for cash flow. And that's the balance. That's the balance that we have.
Nice.
And we're going to constantly be balancing that. If we have money left over at the end of the month, paying taxes, buy more tax shelter. When your tax shelter needs are met, buy more paper. And it's going to tell you where you need to be.
That's brilliant, brilliant stuff again. I'm humbled to be here, sitting here, because I'm a simple thinker, but awesome.
Well, those aren't my ideas. I've had a lot of good trainers.
Okay, and since I'm a beginner here, I've been handed a note that it is 1001 West Loop South, just north of Post Oak Boulevard on the northbound side, Suite 550. And the easiest thing to do is go up to level 7 of the parking garage and come in and follow the signs. That's nice and easy, and a bunch of cars up there. We got a good crowded room out here, so
Might even have a breakfast taco left.
oh man, I tell you, I don't know where those tacos came from, but the one I had was
Nice.
nice and tasty. So yeah, a free breakfast, all sorts of reasons to come out. But Tom, back to your, and the other thing is massivepassiveshow.com, massivepassiveshow.com. And we're live on YouTube, we're on the radio. And so, Tom, I wanted to go back to 23 years old. What did that do to your career aspirations? Your parents are kind of maybe out there throwing some breadcrumbs for you, and you started picking up those crumbs and started doing something. What happened?
Well, actually, I think they had 2 or 3 rental properties, plus the home they lived in. Not what I would consider any kind of serious wealth. And he was a bricklayer. My stepmother cut hair for a living. Again, we're talking years and years ago. And it seems as though their career aspirations didn't change dramatically. He retired from being a bricklayer to a real estate broker. And she went from a hairstylist to becoming a real estate agent. And they moved to the Valley to sell condos. And he fished for a living as a broker, and she brought the business through the door. It worked out really well for them. So I took over management of their property, of the 2 or 3 houses where I kind of cut my teeth on property management. And as I was accumulating more and more property, that portfolio just built up. So it was them leading me to the direction of the water and then me having to drink it.
So if a young person out there listening to this or involved in the RIA, at 23 years old, you had better margin for failure than I do at 63, as far as being able to fail and come back. And
I had nothing to lose because I had nothing
to lose. Yes,
other than the next meal. I had that to
right.
lose.
Yeah, and so going out and doing that, and you had a lot to gain by that because you had, let's say, 40 years of investing that you had in front of you, which I don't have at the age of 63. Well, I don't know. I could go to 103, but
good luck.
But let's also talk about the generational thing. Your parents weren't necessarily entrepreneurial minded and aggressive in getting out there, but they
to a
felt
small
it,
degree.
Yes,
they understood the potential.
Yeah, but I have a feeling that they kept on encouraging you in such a way that they wanted to do something for the next generation.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, can you speak about that?
Well, I'm right now training my grandson. He is 21. He's on his 6th deal already in a year and a half. And to me, this business isn't for me. It was at that time, but now it is generational, as you've talked about, Cal. Mm-hmm. What we leave to the next generation is our responsibility now. My needs are going to be met. I'm always going to have a full tank of gas, new tires. If I want to take a week off, that's not an issue anymore. But I'm not planning for Friday. I'm planning for 20 years plus a Friday. I'm planning generationally and his kids. And it's our job to set those foundations with education, with resources. I'm not giving him anything.
Exactly.
Other than education. You have to go to work. If you want it, go get it. And that's my philosophy.
Yeah. Well, I think of Warren Buffett's famous line, and I should write it down and memorize it. He wants to give his kids enough so that they can do anything to give them the opportunity to give them whatever they want to do, but not enough so that they can do whatever they want to do, something like that.
Not enough that they can do nothing.
Right. Exactly, yeah. And because a lot is said about the top 10%, the top 1%, And I keep on hearing, and I love Jordan Peterson because
Oh, absolutely.
he's one of these guys that looks at the facts. I like Thomas Sowell because he goes back and looks at the facts. They're two of the most empirical people that I know. And when they do that, what happens in our culture is that there's a lot of churn and burn in that top 1%. You look at Silicon Valley and look at some of the crazy things that those guys are doing. They're not going out producing like their parents and grandparents did. They're just eating up resources, causing a lot of havoc. And so I don't want to turn this into a culture moment, but that's one thing that some people need to realize is that wealth in our country still can be generated, and that's why this is a great place. And what you have done is generate wealth here by
Literally from nothing.
putting something in, yeah, and with a little help along your way. And so, Cal, I know that you and I talked the other day at lunch about a couple of things, and I just picked up on because I knew you came from a place of values some maybe similar to what I did. But can you kind of speak to that and how
Sure.
like lending and hard money lending and long-term mortgage, how that
Yeah.
plays into it?
Yeah, well, I think that back to education. I mean, I jumped into the money side of this because I had to. All of a sudden I had this contract on this house, and what do you do? And look, I'm a hard learner. I'm a guy that unless I'm backed into the corner, that's when I start to learn. And I would say that I think that a lot of it, is fear. Hey, I was a good guy. I went to high school. I wasn't, top of the class, blah, blah, blah. I went to college because I thought it was the thing to do. Chasing girls was better than working. Got the degree and then went out and got the job, But, what I found in America is the job and the 401k. I mean, honestly, it's not going to get you where you want to be. It's kind of a false sense.
Unless mediocrity is your goal.
Right, absolutely. I mean, and you look, there's some people, look, if you're, number 3 employee at Google, even if you were a secretary, I'm sure you're fine. So there are exceptions to that rule. But, for me, when I discovered real estate, I mean, for the effort expended, it's amazing. I mean, just in the rental world, look, we make money so many different ways. We make money in cash flow. We make money from appreciation, which the appreciation has been phenomenal. We make money from depreciating and taking tax advantages. I mean, there's just so many ways we fill the card. And hey, nobody taught me that. I wish they would have taught me that in business. I mean, I've got a business degree somewhere. Why did they teach me that? And hearing your stories, I mean, like I say, I'm humbled to be here because it's such a small scale what you guys are up to. But golly, taking care of my family, creating a retirement. I mean, we, bringing 7-figure, wealth factors into my world. I mean, it's stunning because, my dad was a good guy, went to school,
Absolutely.
Got a degree, but, he never, he didn't follow a wealth, pattern.
Mm-hmm.
He just, he's a good worker and hey, he always provided well for us. And, but this stuff is phenomenal. I mean, it really
Wow.
is.
So, yeah, I want to ask a question kind of related to that, but I do need to jump in and say massivepassiveshow.com is where
Absolutely.
we're found. And if you want to sponsor us, we are taking sponsors on, and that's actually growing pretty quick. So get a hold of us because we're going to have a good reason for you to want to sponsor us. And let's see, the other thing I was going to talk about, I forgot. I'm a new kid here, so Tom, you said something about, if they want to settle for mediocrity, and I think about that, and I think about those listless students that go to nice places of education, but they're doing nothing. They're not producing, they're not giving to the economy, they're not generating wealth. They're kind of living off of wealth. And unfortunately, with the internet age, there are some people that can go out and leverage information And I kind of look at that as cheating because you're not really generating wealth. You're just kind of moving it around. There are places like the Federal Reserve can just change a few numbers and they just take money out of your account. And they can
I
do
think
things
that's
that,
called the IRS.
yeah.
Isn't that tax?
Well, they can do things that cause inflation, take money out of your account, or just kind of move it around. And there are, there are some things that make us great. There are some things that can really make us fall. But if you want generational wealth, and you want your kids and grandkids to have the same opportunity that you had, you can't really settle for mediocrity. So, do you have any thoughts on that,
I
Tom?
do.
Yeah.
And I've told my grandson this story several times because I want him to remember it. If you think about, we don't see them much anymore, a DVD or a CD, that little piece of plastic with the silver coating. The guy that works at the factory that produces those CDs, DVDs, whatever makes that product, it's a little plastic stamp. Somebody operator's feeding the plastic chips in there, and he's producing these units, maybe thousands a day, et cetera, et cetera. Guy might be making $22, $25 an hour, $50,000 a year. Not a bad deal. I think the average American now makes maybe $1,000 a week. He's making that unit. He may be paid on production, produces 10, 20,000 a day, whatever their production marks are, to generate that $1,000 a week. But he's got to go to work next week to generate those units to generate that $1,000. If you look at the person that's providing the technology or intellectual property that goes on that CD, for example, pick your favorite artist of any type of music. George Strait, just throw a number out there, a name out there. George Strait goes to the studio for 6 weeks, produces a product, puts it on that CD one time, and he gets paid for the rest of his life for 6 weeks worth of work. And then next month, he can go out and start on his next album. And then he can produce that album. Meanwhile, the guy at the factory is still cranking out the CDs.
What an analogy. That's amazing.
But the artist only has to create that wealth one time. And when we buy a rent house or buy some paper, buy a note, generate income, we only have to do that once, and then it produces for the rest of our life if we don't sell it.
Man, I really appreciate that framework, that just what you're saying, just framing that.
It's absolutely true.
I'm excited
Well,
to
now
get
let me
that.
jump in here.
Yeah.
None of us are George Strait.
We're not.
But that's your
George
point,
Strait.
isn't it?
You don't have to be George Strait.
Right.
Exactly.
But I don't want to be the person producing the CD. I want to be the guy putting the content on the CD. And my content is a rent house.
Amen, amen. Yeah, I mean, leveraging and being able to leverage money.
Okay, I want you to talk about leveraging.
Yeah.
What is that? How would you define leveraging for those who aren't familiar with the term?
I just want to run through that just super fast. So,
Because you got the last word on. We got 5
yeah,
minutes left.
absolutely. Look, here's the thing, man. Let's just say all houses in a neighborhood cost $100. They sell generally for $100,000. They sell for $100,000. Well, in that world, if you can find the one that you can buy for $50,000 and you can repair it for $70,000, in a hard money scenario, we're going to finance that whole show. We're going to finance you buying it. We're going to finance you repairing it. That transaction is going to cost you about $4,000. And when you sell it for $100,000, that's going to provide you with a $26,000 profit. I mean, those are deals that get done every day. Now, in my world, if I keep that rental, that's a $26,000 unrealized CapEx gain that, by the way, I'm getting depreciation, appreciation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it's cash flowing. And I don't pay any taxes whatsoever on that gain until I sell it. Well, guess what? I don't sell it. Then I refinance later. I pull out, $100,000 from my portfolio. I pay zero taxes on that, folks.
Because it's not income. It's a loan.
Thank you. When I figured that one out, and like I said, I'm a hard learner. When I figured that one out, I said, oh my God, how many of these can I buy?
So the difference between Tom in his 20s learning this and building that up, and Cal being 49 and
And holding.
and doing about 10 years ago, the difference between that is that he had been in a RIA. And
Absolutely.
He was so
no doubt.
man,
No education.
and what is this? By the way, it's massivepassiveshow.com. Also, it's alamoria.org. You can go for San Antonio. In Houston, it's the namelessria.com. Namelessria.com will get you there. We'll change our name next month.
Yeah, I'm the poster child for saying get educated.
Wow.
Do it now. I mean, what amazing people are.
Well, let's face it. We're all going to be educated. Either we can choose our terms or the marketplace will teach us. And if the marketplace teaches you, it will cost you a lot more.
Nicely said. Nicely said.
Wow.
If you think education is expensive, try ignorance for a while.
No, I have. It was very costly. Thank you guys so much for
But you recovered.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, don't wrap up too quick. We still have to go to the end. So, and I've already said massivepassiveshow.com. 1 minute, 30 seconds. So, anyway, I'm not sure they'll have me back again, but
You're doing a great job, man. I'm telling you, you got you got two crazy investors here that can't hold a job. That's like herding cats.
But we've created a lot of them.
Yeah.
1001 West Loop South on the northbound side, just north of Post Oak Boulevard, Suite 550. And park up on the 7th.
Yeah, come out.
Yeah, park up on the 7th floor of the parking garage and come in. And now I hear the music, and so I think we're about to get out of here. So
Thank you guys so much.
Richard,
you.
thanks for having me. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
really
it.
enjoyed it.
do I need to say something? All right. Okay, good. Thanks, guys. We're done.